Welcome back to Detoxification Month here on this channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking all about facilitating excretion, aka you got the stuff in your body, now how do you get it out? And there's really only so many exit routes that things can take from our body, right? We can poop it out, which mostly is going to involve the liver, the gallbladder, and the digestive system, namely the colon. We can pee it out, which is going to involve your circulatory system and your kidneys and bladder. Or we could sweat it out or breathe it out, as the case with sweat or your breath. We're going to focus on these three main routes: pooping it out, peeing it out, and sweating it out, and how you can support all of these things with either lifestyle changes or supplementation. So to get right into it, my favorite, let's start with the pooping it out route, because that is kind of apropos for the gut microbiome queen to start with, wouldn't you say? So like I said, this is going to come down to supporting your liver, gallbladder, and digestive system, especially the microbiome that lives in the colon. So starting with the liver and the gallbladder, we could support these systems with things like the cofactors and the vitamins and minerals needed by the detoxification enzymes. Now this is something you can easily Google, like phase 1, phase 2 liver detox, and you'll pull up infographics out the wazoo, and you'll see what I'm talking about here. But this is going to boil down to a lot of the different B vitamins, minerals, and things like glutathione, or things that support glutathione, which I'm going to abbreviate as GSH. As a side note, I have a whole 30-minute YouTube video going into detail about glutathione, why you should care about it, how to support it, etc. But things like glutathione, N-acetylcysteine, aka NAC, or alpha lipoic acid, also known as ALA. These things are all going to help with the detoxification enzymes in your liver and help them work at their best. Now, it's interesting to note that we can support our liver in a number of different ways, and not all of them are actually conducive to detoxification. So the quintessential liver herb that we might all think about is milk thistle. But not only does milk thistle not help with detoxification whatsoever, it actually might hinder it a little bit. You see, because milk thistle is not aimed at supporting detoxification. Milk thistle is hepatoprotective, which means it is protecting the liver cells from inflammation or damage, and that's why it's effective for things like fatty liver disease. But in this case, where we're trying to facilitate excretion and we want those enzymes to work better inside the cells, we actually don't want to do something like milk thistle in this case. Instead, like I said, B vitamins, minerals, glutathione, and glutathione support, these are all going to be really, really great adjuncts to any detox plan. The other thing that you could think about doing is so-called bile movers, or herbs that help you produce bile or move bile out of your system. So think about things like bitters, dandelion, artichoke, even things like ginger. I'm trying to think. Fringe tree is a fantastic herb for this. So there are a lot of different bile mover herbs or like bile stimulating herbs that you could use here. Would ox bile do the same thing? Here's an interesting question. I'm in the camp, I'm going to go with a solid no. You see, what's happening is as the liver is doing all of the heavy lifting with the chemical reactions, and the liver and its enzymes are transforming the toxic compound into a less toxic substance and getting it ready for excretion, you're using the bile as a vehicle to remove this stuff out of the liver. So just dumping in brand new bile into your digestive system isn't going to help here. Right? The bile isn't going to like snake its way up into the liver, grab all the toxic stuff, and then go back out into your digestive system. And don't get me wrong, I like ox bile, I like TUDCA, it can help with IBS symptoms and SIBO symptoms, it's just not a detoxification thing. But continuing on, so bile movers, vitamins, minerals, glutathione support, all of that is going to help tremendously. Even doing bile moving strategies and lifestyle things could help. So for example, moving or walking after meals has been shown to help stimulate bile secretion. So even something as simple as walking or movement could be really helpful here. Let's get into where that bile is going to go though. So you detox in the liver, you dump all that stuff into the bile, it hitches a ride, with or without a gallbladder, it hitches a ride into the GI tract. Now what happens? Well, now you're going to have microbes interacting with that bile. You're going to be conjugating it, for example, and you're going to have the contents of your gut interacting with that bile. And that's going to dictate how much bile is going to get recycled, how much of this toxic stuff is going to get reabsorbed into your bloodstream, and how much of it is actually going to get pooped out. So any of your microbiome support type of stuff is going to be a good contender here. Things like probiotics, prebiotics, polyphenols, maybe antimicrobials, but I wouldn't start with that most likely, at least for this purpose. So a lot of different gut support things can help. The biggest two that I would say that have the best evidence supporting them are going to be fiber, particularly insoluble. So this is going to be more along the lines of roughage, which we would typically call it. So this is going to be like greens and like fibrous stuff, you know, like celery and arugula and that sort of food, as opposed to a soluble fiber, which is going to be largely the FODMAPs, or things like partially hydrolyzed guar gum or inulin, if you're thinking about supplements. Those are not going to do such a good job, because the whole idea with fiber, in addition to modulating the gut microbiota, is that insoluble fiber provides a sort of raft that the toxins and cholesterol and unwanted stuff can kind of ride out of your system on. So if you want to provide a good exit route and something for those toxins to float away on into the toilet in this case, you want to think insoluble fiber in particular. The other thing is that there's a lot of good evidence that probiotics can help with detoxification. There was a really neat study, and hopefully I'm not going to butcher it because I haven't read it in a year or two, but there was a really neat study where there was a village in Africa on the coast of a lake. And the lake was and is very, very polluted with high, high levels of mercury. But the people who live along this lake were eating the fish out of the lake every day. That was one of their main forms of sustenance. And the researchers thankfully had the understanding to say, hey, we can't be the jerks from another country who come in here and tell these people, hey, just don't eat the fish, figure something else out, and then like, peace out, goodbye, we leave them be. We have to actually help them here. So what they did, they said, you know what, screw it, keep eating the fish. But they taught the women in that village how to make yogurt with a very cheap starter that they provided. And what they were able to show is that by consuming the yogurt with the fish, the yogurt, the probiotics and the lactobacilli in the yogurt actually bound up a lot of the mercury and made it so the mercury never got into the bloodstream, and a lot more of it was pooped out rather than absorbed. That is so freaking cool, right? Like, who comes up with this study design? That is amazing. And I hope they replicate it and do it again and again with different probiotics and different groups of people. So wicked cool. But don't underestimate the power of probiotics to help you with detoxification. It is wild when you get into the literature on this. Continuing on though, so I have to leave my favorite part of it now, and we're going to talk briefly about the kidneys and the urinary system and then finally sweat. So let's move on with the video. So supporting your kidneys and supporting urination, the best thing you could do is hydration, right? Like, this should be a no duh kind of situation. There's not going to be any fancy schmancy electrolyte powder or, you know, kidney tonic or whatever that's going to replace just hydrating, preferably with water. Yes, you could maybe jazz up your water or do seltzer or do something like that, but really just plain old H2O is going to go a really long way. Now, there are herbs that could support the kidneys, and I'm not enough of an expert to really speak on that. What I will say is a couple of things. Is A, anything that is a diuretic would facilitate excretion in this sense, because a diuretic is going to make you pee a lot. So diuretic herbs maybe could be a contender here. Another thought is, everybody knows stinging nettle from the antihistamine, anti-allergy perspective, probably. But nettle seed tincture, which you can get, I know you can get it from a company called Herbalist and Alchemist. I'll link it down in the description because I know that's obscure, but I don't know of any other company that makes it. But nettle seed tincture can help kidney function to a point where the guy who runs that company and has talked about this publicly has said he's worked with people who are on dialysis or starting to go towards kidney failure. And the nettle seed tincture really seems to slow it down or halt the process of kidney failure, which is insane. Like there's nothing else from the natural kind of world that can do that. So I'm going to put, again, H2O, by far the most important, but maybe nettle seed tincture could be a contender here as well. And then last but not least, sweating. Now, I used to go to this environmental medicine symposium, like a detox symposium, every year before the pandemic. And I remember distinctly, there was one of the head honcho guys was doing a whole lecture about different types of sauna. So do you want wet sauna, dry sauna, infrared, near infrared? Do you want to just live in the state of Arizona and bake every day outside in July and sweat to death in July? How do you want to do it? And his conclusion was, look, they're all great. He shared he has a preference for what he personally uses, but he said, honestly, guys, to this room of like 300 naturopaths, he said, honestly, guys, just get your patients to sweat. It doesn't matter how. Sweat is good for detoxification. It doesn't matter how they sweat. If they want to train for a marathon or if they want to take up a sport or an exercise that makes them sweat, great. If they want to sit on their butt in a sauna, great. As long as your people are sweating, that is good enough. You don't have to get fancy with it. So I will just put down here. Actually, my handwriting is going to be terrible if I try to, that's actually not bad. Just sweat. Now, the obvious, maybe not obvious thing is that if you sweat because you are working out, that's a double bonus, right? So you get the sweat that's going to be good for detoxification, but you also get any of the strength or metabolic or anti-inflammatory or like brain boosting benefits that come along with the exercise itself. So if you could sweat through exercise, I think that's ideal. But like he said, if you want to sit your butt in a sauna and sweat that way, that is perfectly fine too. My mom, years ago now, my mom was exposed to really bad mold in her workplace, and she was quite sick from it. And I took her to a mold literate doctor, and it was a whole, shoemaker thing. Probably the single biggest thing that helped her was simply sweating. So my mom has some mobility problems and really funky feet that she's had a lot of surgeries on. So running and walking is not necessarily going to be the thing that she can do a lot of. But she could sit on her butt and sweat. So she, like a champion, we left that doctor's office, we went back to her house. I think maybe later that night or the next night, she messaged me and said that she had purchased a sauna and it was going to be there in a week. And to this day, she still uses that sauna, at least semi-regularly, in her home. So sweat, one way or another. If you can exercise and sweat that way, great. If you have to sit your butt in a sauna, that will work too. But sweating definitely is a viable route of excretion here. I don't want to just focus on the liver and ignore all of these other ones. But I think if you were to do a little bit from each of these areas and avoiding the toxins that we're going to talk about in the next video, I think that you're going to have yourself a really great, effective detox on your hands. But here's the thing, my little chili babies. Does it make sense for you as an individual to do a detox? Said a different way, is a detox like this really going to make a big difference in the symptoms that you're trying to deal with? Right? Because I know why you're here. You're not watching this video because you're some huge mega nerd. You're here because you want to feel better. You want something, a protocol, a supplement, anything that is going to alleviate the symptoms that you're dealing with. And if you're here right now listening to me, watching this channel, there's a high likelihood that your symptoms include things like bloating, abdominal pain, abdominal distension. Do you look 9 months pregnant after you eat all of your meals? Constipation, diarrhea, or indigestion. That feeling like there's a brick of lead in your stomach and you just can't digest anything worth a damn anymore. And all of those symptoms have probably gotten you a lot of nice shiny labels that have gotten you not very far, right? Things like IBS, dysbiosis, SIBO, leaky gut, and candida. And I'm sure you have looked up protocols and supplements and dietary patterns for all of those diagnoses, and you probably have tried them all. But you're still here watching my video, which strongly insinuates that you are still stuck and dealing with these symptoms that you don't want to deal with anymore. So I go back to this question. Is a detox really the answer to your problem? Is this the solution you're looking for? Or is it just going to be another thing you tried once that didn't work? And again, if you fit the bill of what I just described, I unfortunately think it's going to fall into that category of, I tried it once, it didn't work. Instead of wasting your time, effort, and money on a detox program this January, I would love for you to consider FODMAP Freedom in 90 days. We're not enrolling right now in the month of December, but we will be come January. And when we do, I'm going to give you the tools and the coaching and the education you need to finally heal your gut once and for all. And yeah, like detoxification is part of that process, but it is way, way down on the priority list. There's a lot bigger fish that you have to fry before you even need to think about something like detoxification. And those are the things that come first are the things that are actually keeping you stuck and bloated and not pooping. So if you think any of this resonates with you, or if you're just a little bit curious and you want to check it out, even if you're thinking right now, nope, I'm not joining, lady, you're not getting any of my money, that's fine. I get it. I'm just a YouTuber. But if there's even 1% of you that's curious and you're thinking about maybe checking it out, click the link down in the description below, and that'll take you to a page where you can register for the waitlist. All that means is you're telling me, hey, when you open the doors, please send notification to this email, and that's what I'm going to do. Between now and then, I'll probably send you one email per week whenever I have a new YouTube video uploaded or a new podcast episode. But really, you're just saying, hey, I want to be first in line. I want to put dibs on my seat before you potentially have to close the doors, because we have had to cap enrollment in the past. And if you join off of the wait list, you also get a super cool bonus gift when you join us. So really, between all of that and the 100% money back guarantee that I have on FODMAP Freedom, I think you have nothing to lose. And I think that FODMAP Freedom would be a much better fit for what you need, as opposed to doing yet another detox or yet another cleanse.